Why Polytopia's combat loop could complement a hybrid of action and strategy game like Endfield. Why Polytopia? The Battle of Polytopia is a turn-based strategy game where combat is straightforward yet tactically rich. Its combat loop revolves around 1. Unit stats and roles, positioning and terrain, and action economy. This loop emphasizes tactical decision-making within a constrained, predictable framework. Players outmaneuver opponents by optimizing limited resources and anticipating enemy moves. Okay, so is it like an RTS game then? Is it like an RTS game? Let's have a proper look, because I did have a look at some. Let's have a look. Let's have a look before we go in. What? So there's PvP.
Because now we get that one population from the Light City, which is
okay. So
doing.
We are looking at like an RTS type thing, yeah.
And probably a sled here.
So what I'm thinking here, this gives me like a mobile version, obviously with different visuals and stuff. Potentially something like Command and Conquer, maybe. So am I cooking there? Is something like Command and Conquer, maybe? All right. How it could work. Strategic Heritage. Arknights fans are accustomed to tactical gameplay from the Tower Defense original. Polytopia's emphasis on positioning and resource management complements this. So, like, I'm thinking like Command and Conquer StarCraft kind of stuff, like maybe. Offering a bridge between Enfield's real-time action and its strategic roots. Base building synergy. Enfield's industrial complex system, e.g. placing turrets or resource nodes, echoes Polytopia's map control, integrating combat loops where terrain-altering structures like Polytopia's defensive bonuses affect battles, could unify exploration, building and fighting into a cohesive experience. Okay. Countering gacha excess. Gacha games often prioritize stat inflation via rare characters. A Polytopia-inspired system could level the playing field by making low-rarity operators viable through clever positioning and synergy, much like how Polytopia's basic units remain relevant with smart play. I suppose so, yeah. But are we talking like a separate section in regards to their use rather than the action combat? Because I feel like we're talking an absolute overhaul of Enfield's combat system there, and feels more like, well, kind of like that's what Arknights is rather than Endfield is. Applying Polytopia's combat loop to Endfield. Here's how Polytopia's combat principles could theoretically enhance or adapt to Enfield's framework. 1. Defined unit roles and stats as a foundation. Sounds like Civilization. Yes, yeah, a little bit, yeah. Polytopia units have clear fixed stats, e.g. warrior, 2 attack, 2 defense, that dictate their battlefield role and limitations. Okay, so I think this person's obviously, like you say, going into more class-based roles that we were speaking about before, which I wouldn't be against having that in Endfield, personally. Now, I know some people disagreed with me on this. I like the idea of potentially some units maybe not even being able to dodge, or having limited dodges, or very short, small dodges kind of thing, like tanks and, casters maybe having a dodge, but different. And then, like, your Vanguard, DPS, more forward attacking units potentially being able to do that because their job is to put damage out and dodge damage rather than, being glass cannons, basically. Endfield application. Endfield already features operators with distinct roles, e.g. guards, healers, tanks. Applying a Polytopia-like stat clarity could simplify real-time combat by giving each operator predictable attack/defense values alongside their skills, not making every class into guards that can use ranged attacks and heal at the same time. This would make players assess matchups with intention, e.g. pitting a high attack operator against a low defense enemy and avoiding high defense enemies with dangerous counterattacks, adding a layer of tactical readability to the fast-paced action. A little bit too vague. And I feel like could lack a little bit of nuance as well, potentially. Now, it would definitely involve, but again, there'd be strategy there, but how deep would that strategy go if you went to that much of a simplistic situation? I don't know. All right, let's have a look at this. Positioning as a strategic core. Polytopia terrain and unit placements are critical. A unit on a hill or in a forest gains... tell you what's right there. You just mentioned about endgame there. This would be a cool way to do something with the bases, though, wouldn't it? In some sort of, like, potential resource wars against other players or guild stuff. I don't know. Where are we? Training unit placement, a critical unit on a hill or in a forest gains a defensive edge, and Polaris, units moving faster on ice, etc. Enfield application. Enfield's open world environments could adopt this by emphasizing terrain bonuses in real time. Imagine operators and turrets constructs gaining damage reduction in dense ruins or bonus range on elevated platforms. This would encourage players to maneuver their party dynamically, e.g. luring enemies into a choke point or positioning a sniper on a high ground, mirroring Polytopia's focus on outsmarting foes through spatial control rather than raw power. This also means that map design is absolutely critical, not just look pretty, but to accommodate combat. I like the idea of that, though. That would be kind of interesting, that you could position some of those turrets in certain ways that they have a massive amount of range. So you know when you are getting involved in fights in the overworld, if you position turrets in certain ways, they can maybe, you know, basically give you covering fire in like greater areas than what they would if you didn't build them there. But then there could be other units that could benefit from that range as well. So it's like, oh, do you want some cover fire, or do you want to put another potential building unit there that could get a bonus for whatever, you know, a bonus in regards to construction materials or something like that. Fuck off, Windows Defender. I kind of like that. That sounds like a good idea to me. I like that. You know, a bit of reasoning for where you're putting units. Like, well, do you want the turret there, or do you want this unit there? You're going to get a better bonus from both of them. Which one suits you better? More materials, more cover fire. I don't know. I like that. Where are we? Action economy in real time. Polytopia players manage a finite number of moves per turn, balancing aggression and preservation. Enfield application. While Enfield is real time, a Polytopia inspired action economy could introduce a cooldown or stamina system for operator actions beyond just skills and dashes. Each operator could have a limited number of moves, attacks, repositions before needing a brief recovery, forcing players to prioritize which operator acts when, and incentivize switching active control characters to maximize efficiency, akin to Polytopia's turn-based trade-offs. For example, making certain functions like dashes exclusive to nimble guards. I would be fine with that. And if you deplete the dash stamina bar, it will make I don't know about that, though. I don't know about this idea of having to take a long time to recharge. I get it. It's going to make it more proactive, and some people would argue strategy. That for me sounds less like strategy and more like potential frustration when it comes to combat. I think the problem is what some people, I think, when it comes to the strategy idea with Enfield, people think less action means strategy. You can have strategy with action, you know what I mean? And I think that's where we should be focusing. Action strategy, not action through the lack of strategy through the lack of action, if that makes sense. I do like the idea of, like I say, particular operators or agents potentially having, you know, the ability to dodge. Tanks not needing that because that can go into like a defense stance and tank attacks and stuff, of course. And then obviously more range characters not needing it so much because they're in a ranged position and their job is just get the fuck out of the way, run off kind of thing. So yeah, potentially doing like that, you know, your tank just boom, guards, face tanks the attack, you carry on kind of thing, like, and then you could even have the strategy then of potentially setting it where units sit. So like say you're using whatever character, when you're not using them, your caster sits back and your tanks can kind of, obviously this is on the AI, sits in front of them, so then your casters wouldn't need to be dodging because their tank could be doing the job in protecting the caster and stuff. We're getting into a little bit more like complex stuff, and this is where I say a Gambit system would really benefit a game like Endfield, in my opinion. Check out Final Fantasy 12 if you don't know what I'm talking about there. Awesome system that I think could really work in Endfield, in my opinion. Yeah, I don't know about this idea of just making it take a long time. And I don't know about tying it into the economy either. Personally, I don't think that's really a strategy thing. That's more of just tying it to the base system, which, yeah, I don't know about that one. I don't think I'd enjoy that myself because it's just like, yeah, I think it'd be frustrating more than anything, personally. Simplicity driving tactical depth. Yo, Ian, what's going on? How you doing, man? Welcome to the stream. Polytopia, its minimalist combat fosters creativity within constraints, e.g. knights that can chain kills, but weak to high HP, and defense units, invisible fragile cloaks that can siege advantageous spots, etc. Enfield application. Enfield's real-time combat risks becoming a button-mashing frenzy. That's a fair point. That's a fair point, especially with gacha-driven power creep. Fair point again. A Polytopia-style simplification Focusing on core attack / defense interactions over flashy combos could ground the system in strategy. For example, defender enemies could have a really strong counter-attack based on defense stats if not defeated in one hit, incentivizing players to chain range operator turret skills tactically rather than spamming close-range guard units. This aligns with Arknights' legacy of rewarding planning over reflexes. I agree with that, actually. I do agree with that. I do want the combos to stay, though, that when you start triggering the skills together in Enfield, it's satisfying, man. It's so satisfying, and I don't want that to go. But I do agree with the premise there of it making you use units in the way they should be used, basically, rather than just being like, let's just spam through this. It harks back to Arknights in that regard then, doesn't it? Definitely. Again, I said this initially when I played Enfield. Enfield is more proactive than reactive. Lean into that more. Keep the reactive stuff there, but definitely, lean into the proactive stuff. So it's about planning and strategy with skill rather than it's all just skill. And you know what? It doesn't matter. You can... And I don't mind that being there to a degree. If you're really good at the game, you can be loose on your strategy a little bit. I think that's fair. But make it so strategy will always trump, how quick you are on the game. That's how I'd like to see it anyway, personally. This is coming from somebody who does enjoy skill-based games as well, My main issue with this is Enfield, you have 4 units, while okay, you have 12. It's going to be a lot more annoying and repetitive to properly prepare and do unit comps. Fair point. Just let us try the beta, but with the slow-mo skill ult targeting system. I would like to try that as well, personally, because I didn't get to try it, so I know it seems like the majority of people preferred the beta, or I just want to see it for myself. I can't comment because I never got to see it, you know what I mean? I'm 1000% confident the combo skills are inspired from chaining combos from X-Astris. Really? Yeah. I like that system. I think it's a good system, personally. All right. Potential challenges. Real-time versus turn-based. Polytopia's deliberate pace doesn't naturally fit Enfield's fluid combat. Translating turn-based precision into real-time fluidity might dilute the tactical clarity and less balance with slowdown. Mechanics or pause and plan features any tech test enjoyers. I think that's a fair point what they're saying there. Again, I'm not against the slowdown for, not even so much for manually targeting skills, but for potentially I don't know exactly, but I'm not against slowing it down for strategic use of things in a way, So you tend to lean into that element more rather than just the reaction side of things again. But you can do both. I'm always a gamer of choice. Give me the chance to do both. If I can button mash my way through something, but I have to be good, It's not, I shouldn't say button mash. If I can skill my way through it, allow me to do that. But make it so I have to be top 1% really to do that. If you're going to give me strategy, make the strategy work, It's like in any turn-based gacha games when you can auto 90% of the content. Game loses all its meaning then, in my opinion, you know what I mean? Complexity creep. Enfield RPG elements, skills, gear, elemental combos are more intricate than Polytopia's minimalist design. Oversimplifying could alienate players expecting flashy, character-driven action. Okay, are we trying to make the game appease to Polytopia players here? I don't know about that one. Polytopia gives full control over units, while Enfield relies on AI for non-active party members. A Polytopia-style system could need robust AI or manual control options to maintain tactical depth. This is where a Gambit system comes in. I'm okay with looking at a particular game and being let's try and take things and maybe this could make this game better. This person's yo, let's do everything in Polytopia and try and bring that over in some way. I like the ideas. I'm not averse to them, I'd say, I don't agree with most of them, but I like the fact that, what they're doing. This is the sort of conversations we need in the game, But I think this dude just wants Polytopia and it to look like Enfield. Which, I don't want to fuck this game in, so I don't want it to look like that or play like that. But I do think... I would love to reach out to the devs at some point and ask them about that. Have you ever considered a Final Fantasy 12 Gambit system? Because I think it could really benefit the game. I do. Because we've almost got a really simplified pseudo version of the Gambit system in the healing items. In how they, there's a trigger depending on your set health, which ones they use when you're putting in there. That's kind of how the Gambit system works, but obviously it's for things like you can set it so this character will attack the highest DP enemy, the highest HP enemy, the highest defense enemy, the most aggressive enemy, the enemy you're targeting. Healers will heal when you drop below 70% HP, 50% HP. Buffers will do particular stuff when you're doing certain things. And I like the idea of that. I think it could really work in Enfield. And I think that would add the extra level of your skill chains and then like the passive Gambit system, you know, where sometimes they're going to be using active skills, but there's a passive element to it as well. I think that could add some real complexity. And also, it'd add like a system where before you go into a fight, you're setting your Gambit system depending on the enemy you're going against. So the strategy comes in the Gambit system. Like, right, we've got a really high defense enemy here. You know, let's say we need physical attack here. We need to bring our physical attack units in, and they need to be piling onto this particular enemy. Where we've got like our tank concentrating on this other enemy or that other enemy. I think that'd be really interesting. To be fair. So yeah. Let's make a different game, right? I linked a video on React Smash about the combo chain in X Asterisk. Nice one, I'll have a look at that, dude. Reldon, what's going on? Welcome to the stream. This is also what you say, we're always good at pointing faults, but so bad when it comes up. Exactly, yeah, this is the thing with gamers. We're really great to say, I don't like this, but then when we start to give ideas, it's always a really selfish idea, because you think in your head, well, I like this would be great for the game, ignoring 99% of people go, yeah, bro, that sucks. What the fuck are you talking about? And I'm the same. We're all the same. We probably think this would be great. And then you put it out there and everyone goes, yeah, that's shit, bro. I do it all the time. I have ideas. I'm like, dude, this would be amazing if they put this in this video game. I make a video about it and everybody goes, yeah, dude, you're smoking crack with that one. Conclusion. Polytopia combat loop could be applied to Arknights Endfield by emphasizing clear unit roles. Agree with that. I don't think we need to look at Polytopia to do that, though. I think the idea of clear unit roles is, I think, something that most people would want, right? Am I tripping there? I feel like most people would want clear unit roles, right? I think if you've come from Arknights, I think you'd enjoy that. And I think just in general, the way the combat works, I think like actual archetypes and them fitting into a role, in my opinion, definitely would be good. Terrain-based tactics and constrained action economy. Now, there's only so far I think you can go with the terrain-based tactics, because there's going to be combat that happens in the game that's away from your base, right? There's no line of sight. You're inside somewhere. You're in a structure that, like, that's just going to go out the window there. So I think leaning into that too much will just only benefit it when you're fighting in the overworld in the radius of your base, right? Which I'm not against that. Like I said, turrets being on high areas, being able to give you overwatch, potentially some sort of thing that maybe gives you a passive buff when you're out and near it and stuff like that. That'd be cool. But I don't want them to lean into that too much, because then when you're fighting in areas where your base isn't, then again, I suppose you could strategize for that. I suppose there's that argument as well. And constrained action economy, enhancing its strategic depth without overwhelming its real-time nature. I don't know about that one personally. Actually, I'd say no. It would shift Enfield closer to a hybrid of action and strategy, distinguishing it from gacha peers like Genshin Impact that lean heavily on reflexes and spectacle. While not a perfect fit due to the genre differences, the adaptation could appeal to players who crave thoughtful decision-making in Enfield's expansive world, reinforcing its identity as a tactical evolution of the Arknights universe. Yeah, I like this person's thought process, right? I like the fact that they've, put this post up, because I appreciate it when people are trying to, like, you know, we're just discussing the game. We're having conversations on what we think could be cool to add to the game to make it better and such, right? So I'm not shitting on this person at all, but I think a lot of the things that they want could be added to the game without referencing a game like Polytopia. Now, I know that's what they're using as a reference, which is fine, but I just think that you could get those in other ways. Like I say, the strategy type thing for me, Gambit system, would solve a lot of those problems, in my opinion. Roles fitting and tying into the Gambit system as well. I do like the idea of the terrain-based thing, though. I think that could be cool, yeah. I think that's actually kind of a cool idea, personally. Yeah, I finished X Ashes a few days ago. Definitely then practicing stuff for Enfield. Really? You can build turrets in Overworld, though, and you can put batteries to make them work without connect. No, I know you can build turrets in Overworld, but what I'm saying is, you say you've got a turret, right? You place it here. There's a bit of land over in a certain area that's higher up, right? You can put a turret there, and that gives the turret now like a sub ability that gives the turret overwatch. So the turret when you're in combat in ranged areas, obviously it has to be in a radius, but it extends the radius. The turret can now back you up in fights far away from the turret kind of thing. Or instead of doing that because you're confident you don't need that Overwatch backup, you put another building item on this higher area and it gains buffs depending on the terrain, you know, where there could be a passive boost for your team or just a material percentage increase. So you put this particular thing in this particular area and it makes percentage much more than what it would if it wasn't in that area. I think things like that could be kind of interesting. Ambushes that go invisible would be so cool. Yeah. And something tells me the Pulsar didn't play OG Arknights. Yeah, I think they really like Polytopia and would like a game like Polytopia to look like Endfield. Damn, Endfield keeps getting these essays so much discussion. Exactly. I really like this, I do. Like, don't get me wrong. We can look at this person and you can be like, you know what? All his ideas are trash, right? Which I think there's some, like, the premise of some of these ideas for me personally are kind of good. I disagree with like the implementation and how they go, but you know what I mean? I like this because this is what we need in the game. You know, people really thinking things through. They can be wrong. That's the beauty of opinions, right? But this is good. This is. I really like the fact of this. Wake up pigs, you can't bring crews in Endfield too. Oh my god, they need to though. I came with an idea for one of the classes in Arknights being able to buff turrets or make them do something else. Yeah, man. But that sort of thing would be interesting, like in regards to how you're building your team. Yeah, I'll be down for that as well, kneecapped. Yeah. So you can have it so it affects your teammates and your base as well. I hope so, Mead Frost. Yeah. I thought that was worth having a look at anyway. So yeah, I don't agree personally, but with a lot of the ideas. But yeah, we don't have to, do we? We don't have to.